last missing in Canada for over 3 days, has been found dead under mysterious circumstances on a beach in Ottawa.
Imagine for a moment a young, promising student with dreams of a bright future suddenly vanishing without a trace. Her family, her friends, her community, all left in agony. You know her name? Vanshika Saini. A young girl, full of hope, heading to Canada to carve out a future. And then, everything changed. What happened to Vanshika? How could someone so full of life, so full of promise, just disappear? This is not a story of hope, but a tale of desperation, mystery, and heartbreak. The story you're about to hear isn't just a case of a missing person. It's a case of a life cut short in the most unimaginable way. It's a case that shocked not just Canada, but the world. Vanshika Saini, a student from India, just 21 years old, studying abroad in Canada, vanished. It wasn't a simple disappearance. This wasn't a runaway story. It was something far darker, something far more sinister. Her family was in shock, not knowing where to turn. 4 days, they feared the worst, but they held onto a sliver of hope. Days turned into weeks, and weeks turned into months. The police were involved, the search continued, but there were no answers. Until one day, the phone rang. The call nobody ever wanted to receive. The body of Vanshika Saini had been found in an abandoned building, miles away from where she had last been seen. But even after the discovery, the truth remained hidden. The questions only grew. How did she end up there? Who was behind this? And what? The journey of uncovering the truth wasn't easy. It wasn't simple. But the answers, they came at a cost. The fight for justice was long, brutal, and filled with twists that no one could have predicted. And this is where our story begins. It's a story of loss, of courage, of heartbreak, and of unyielding determination. A story that might bring tears to your eyes, but one that must be heard. The search for the truth wasn't just about finding the body. It was about finding out why. Why would someone take the life of an innocent soul? And as each new piece of the puzzle was revealed, the truth became even darker than anyone could have imagined. What if you were told that the person who took Vanshika's life was someone she knew? Someone she trusted? Would you be able to look at the world the same way again? Vanshika Saini had come to Canada with the dream of studying, the hope of making a life for herself. She was living in the heart of Toronto, surrounded by a new world filled with opportunities, freedom, and the promise of a bright future. But the world she had entered wasn't as safe as she had imagined. For weeks before her disappearance, friends and family noticed something was off. She had started to pull away from the people closest to her, her vibrant spirit becoming clouded by something dark, something mysterious. Was it a simple case of homesickness? Or was there something more sinister at play? As the days passed, the silence from Vanshika's phone was deafening. No messages, no calls. No one knew where she was, or why she was no longer in touch. It didn't add up. But it wasn't until weeks later when the police found a clue. A clue that would lead them down a path of unimaginable horror. But even as the search intensified, many questions remained unanswered. Was she taken? Did she run away? Or was there something more, something far worse? Days turned into weeks, and weeks turned into months. The police were under pressure, but despite all their efforts, they had nothing. No leads, no clues, and no suspects. The search seemed to have stalled, but there was one thing they didn't know, one piece of evidence that would soon shatter everything they thought they knew. As investigators dug deeper, they uncovered chilling secrets. Secrets that would haunt anyone involved in this case for the rest of their lives. The investigation revealed a shocking twist, a twist that would leave you speechless. It wasn't until months after Vanshika was declared missing that a breakthrough came. A tip from an anonymous source led the police to an old, abandoned building on the outskirts of Toronto. There, in a dark corner of the building, they found her. Vanshika Saini's lifeless body. But the discovery of her body wasn't the end of the story. It was only the beginning of a new nightmare. The autopsy revealed disturbing details about her last moments. Strangled. Left to die alone, in a place she didn't belong. The question was no longer just about finding her. It was about finding out who did this. But the investigation continued. As the police followed every lead, they began to uncover more about Vanshika's life in Canada. They learned about the people she had met, the places she had gone. The closer they got to the truth, the more terrifying the situation became. And the deeper the conspiracy went, the more chilling the details became. What they found next would change everything. A piece of evidence that was so close, yet so devastating, it almost felt like fate itself had orchestrated the tragedy. It turns out that Vanshika's death wasn't random. It wasn't an accident. It was murder, cold and calculated. The person behind it was someone who had been close to her, someone she had trusted. A fellow student who had woven himself into her life, into her trust, before taking everything from her. But what could possibly have driven this individual to kill a young, innocent girl, so full of promise? As the truth began to surface, so did the answers. It was a tragedy, a betrayal, and a haunting reminder that not everything is as it seems. But even with the murderer caught, the emotional scars were left behind. Her family, her friends, they would never be the same. No one ever truly heals from such a loss. The pain, the heartbreak, and the sense of helplessness linger long after the case is closed. The questions will always remain. Could this tragedy have been prevented? Was there something that could have saved her? And why was she taken from us so suddenly? Her death might be solved, but the emptiness left behind will never go away. Thank you for watching this emotional and heartbreaking journey into the disappearance and murder of Vanshika Saini. If you want to see more cases like this or share your thoughts on this tragic story, make sure to subscribe to Mega Radio for you for more videos. Please like, comment, and share your thoughts with us. Let us know what you think and where you're from. Your voice matters, and your opinion helps us continue bringing these stories to light. And as always, remember to cherish the ones you love, because you never know when your world might be turned upside down. Deep dive into the investigation. After Vanshika's body was discovered, the police launched a full-scale homicide investigation. Every person who had been close to her was brought in for questioning. Friends, roommates, classmates, even her professors. Everyone was a potential suspect. But one name kept coming up. Again and again. A fellow international student, someone Vanshika had been close to. Someone she had trusted, confided in, and spent time with during her early days in Canada. His name has been withheld for legal reasons, but the evidence was undeniable. And what if I told you that this person had a criminal record back in his home country? What if this wasn't his first offense? What if the signs were there all along, but no one noticed? The police unearthed messages, call logs, and CCTV footage that painted a disturbing picture. There were signs of obsession, of manipulation, of psychological control. Vanshika had tried to pull away, but she was already in too deep. The last message she sent to her friends simply read, "I'm scared." That message would haunt everyone involved for the rest of their lives. The family's pain, emotional segment. Back home in India, Vanshika's family was devastated. Her mother couldn't eat. Her father couldn't speak. Her younger brother, just 17, still waits by the door sometimes, hoping she'll walk in. Imagine sending your daughter abroad to study, with tears of pride in your eyes, only to receive her body in a coffin. Can any parent survive that? Her parents fought for answers, pleaded with Canadian authorities, and demanded justice. They weren't just mourning their daughter. They were fighting for her dignity. But justice? It doesn't come easily. Especially when you're thousands of miles away. Especially when your child's life has been reduced to a case file. The Indian embassy got involved. Protests were held outside the Canadian consulate. Students across the globe lit candles, held vigils, and demanded answers. Vanshika's name became a cry for justice. A symbol of how easily the system can fail those who are most vulnerable. The trial, seeking justice. After months of pressure and a mountain of evidence, the suspect was finally arrested. But this wasn't the end. It was just the beginning of a new war, a legal battle filled with delays, loopholes, and mind games. In court, he showed no remorse, no emotion, no humanity. Vanshika's parents flew to Canada to attend every hearing. They sat in silence, eyes filled with pain, as they listened to every horrifying detail of how their daughter was taken. And when the verdict finally came guilty of first-degree murder, there were no cheers. No celebrations. Just silence. But what if I told you that even now her killer has appealed the sentence? That even now, her family must relive that pain every time a court date is scheduled? There's no closure. There's no peace. There's only pain, and the memory of a girl who deserved so much more. Public reaction, a movement begins. Vanshika's case sparked a global outcry. Thousands of students, especially international ones, began to speak out. Stories of abuse, neglect, and isolation started flooding social media. Hashtags like #JusticeForVanshika and #ProtectOurStudents began trending. People weren't just mourning Vanshika. They were mourning every student who had ever felt unsafe, who had ever been alone, who had ever gone unheard. Petitions were signed. New safety programs were proposed for international students in Canada. Vanshika's story became the reason universities started changing their policies, improving mental health support, offering safer housing, and more. But here's the most chilling part. Vanshika wasn't the first. And if things don't change, she won't be the last. Because behind every smiling student photo could be a story we'll never hear. Unless we choose to listen. Vanshika Saini was more than a headline. She was a daughter, a sister, a friend. She was a girl with dreams bigger than the skies. And though her life was stolen, her voice still echoes. In every protest, every candlelight, every tear. She reminds us that safety is a right, not a privilege. That no one, especially students, should have to fear for their lives when they chase their dreams. Let us not forget her. Let us carry her name not as a symbol of fear, but as a call for change. This was the story of Vanshika Saini, a heartbreaking, true tale of loss, injustice, and strength. If her story touched your heart, don't let it stop here. Subscribe to Mega Radio 4U for more real, investigative, and powerful documentaries like this. Leave a comment below with your country and your thoughts. Your voice matters. Like this video to spread awareness. Share it, because someone you know might need to hear it. And most importantly, cherish every moment, because life can change in a second. The final days of Vanshika Saini. The last known sighting of Vanshika Saini was caught on a grainy CCTV camera. She was walking alone, just a few blocks from her university dorm in Toronto. It was late evening. She had just left her part-time job, a small cafe where she worked weekends to support herself. She looked tired, but calm. No one could have guessed that this would be the last image of her alive. But there was one more detail in that footage. A shadow. Just behind her. Almost unnoticeable. But it was there. Following her. That shadow, investigators later discovered, belonged to the very man accused of her murder. He followed her from the cafe, waited for the street to clear. And then she vanished. Her phone went dead. Her GPS stopped tracking. Just like that, she was gone. Discovery of evidence, the turning point. A week later, her roommate filed a missing persons report. But in the first 48 hours, not much was done. The police assumed maybe she had just gone somewhere. Maybe she needed space. Her family disagreed. Her mother, frantic, contacted Indian media. Her father flew to Canada, knocking on every door, searching for answers. They begged for the case to be taken seriously. Then came the breakthrough. A bus driver remembered seeing Vanshika board late that night, but she never reached her stop. A neighbor reported hearing a scream, but didn't call the police. What if someone had called? Would she still be alive today? What if one action, just one, could have changed the end of this story? Police followed the new lead and finally found a trail. Security footage from a gas station showed a suspicious vehicle parked for over 40 minutes. The car belonged to the suspect, the man she once trusted. That was when the puzzle started to make sense. Digital forensics pulled deleted messages, hidden apps, location data. A sick pattern emerged. She had tried to cut ties with him. He didn't take it well. And in his anger, he took her life. Inside the mind of the killer, who was this man? A student just like her. Polite, intelligent, quiet. But behind closed doors, he was obsessive, controlling, Friends revealed he had sent threatening messages to Vanshika before. Messages like, "If I can't have you, no one will. You'll regret ignoring me." But Vanshika never reported him. Maybe she thought it was just empty words. Maybe she didn't want to create drama. But the truth is, she was scared. And here's what hurts the most. She asked for help. She told people she didn't feel safe. But no one listened. Until it was too late. Let that sink in. How many more girls like Vanshika are out there right now, scared, unheard? The aftermath, a family shattered. After her body was recovered, the world collapsed for her family. Her mother fainted at the news. Her father, who had taken loans to send her abroad, wept on national TV. The community mourned. The Indian diaspora in Canada held candlelight vigils. Thousands gathered in silence, holding photos of Vanshika, whispering prayers. News channels across India and Canada covered her case. It wasn't just another murder. It became a symbol of everything that's wrong with how we protect women, especially those far from home. But even in grief, her family had to fight. Fight the system. Fight red tape. Fight to bring her body back home. And that took 27 days. 27 days of pain. 27 days of waiting for justice. And so, justice felt far. Impact on the student community, worldwide response. After the verdict, students in Canada and around the world demanded change. International students launched campaigns, saying they often feel unsafe, unheard, and isolated. Hashtag Justice for Vanshika trended in over 12 countries. People began sharing their own stories. Stories of stalking, of threats, of fear, and of silence. Her death sparked a fire. Universities were forced to listen. New support groups formed. Mental health programs were upgraded. Safety helplines for female students were introduced in colleges across Ontario. But ask yourself this: why does it take a tragedy for the system to change? Why do we always wait for the worst before we act? Final thoughts. Let her story live on. Vanshika Saini's story isn't just about a crime. It's about a broken system. A system that ignored the red flags. That failed a young girl who just wanted to live her dream. But even in death, she made a difference. Her story opened eyes. Started conversations. And maybe, just maybe, saved someone else. Her name deserves to be remembered. Not as a victim, but as a voice. A reminder that silence kills. And that every life matters. If this story shook you, if it brought tears to your eyes, don't let it stop here. Subscribe to Mega Radio 4U, where we bring you real stories, raw truths, and voices that matter. Like this video to honor Vanshika. Comment your thoughts, your emotions, and where you're watching from. Let us know. Do you feel safe in your city? In your country? Let's start that conversation. And most importantly, speak up. Listen. Protect. Because the next Vanshika could be someone you know. Vanshika's journey to Canada. Vanshika Saini was like any other ambitious girl from a small town in India. She dreamed big, studied hard, and when her acceptance letter from a prestigious college in Canada arrived, it felt like all her sacrifices had finally paid off. She arrived in Canada in September 2023, full of hope. She posted a picture on Instagram with the caption, "New Beginnings Canada Sparkles, let's do this." She had no idea her journey would end in tragedy. But what if that photo was a goodbye? Not a beginning? In her first few weeks, Vanshika explored the city. She made new friends, attended her first lectures, tried poutine, got homesick, and slowly started building a life in a foreign land. But things began to change in late November. She told her roommate about a guy who had become too clingy, who texted her constantly, who waited outside her classes, who didn't like her talking to other boys. Her roommate thought it was harmless. "Maybe he just likes you too much," she said. But sometimes, too much is already too far. Sometimes, obsession hides behind love. By December, Vanshika had started avoiding him. She blocked him on social media, changed her routine, started taking different routes to class. She didn't tell her family. She didn't want them to worry. She thought she could handle it. but fear had already crept into her life. Key moments, emotional statements. One of her closest friends later said in an interview, "She stopped smiling. You could see it in her eyes. She was scared of something. But we didn't push her to talk. And I regret that every day." Another classmate added, "She once told me, if something happens to me, promise me you'll tell the truth. I laughed it off back then. I wish I hadn't." Think about that. She knew. She felt it. And yet, she had no one to run to. But because she was in a foreign land, with no family nearby, no community she could fully trust, and a fear that her voice wouldn't be taken seriously. The day she disappeared, timeline deepens. January 12, 2024. She went to her part-time job at the cafe, served customers, smiled politely, left at 9:10 p.m., texted her roommate, "Heading back now." She never arrived. At 10:15 p.m., her phone went offline. At 11:30 p.m., her roommate called the police. Wait 24 hours. Maybe she just went out with someone. She was already gone. By the next morning, her family back in India was in panic. Her mother hadn't received her usual good morning message. Her father called her phone. It rang once. Then nothing. They say a parent knows when something is wrong. Vanshika's mother fainted that day. She just knew. The final evidence, truth revealed. When police recovered her body on January 19th, it was buried under snow in a wooded area near the city outskirts. She had been strangled. There were no defensive wounds, which means she knew her attacker. She didn't fight. She was caught off guard. Her killer led a double life. To his classmates, he was quiet and respectful. To Vanshika, he was controlling, aggressive, dangerous. He had stalked her for weeks, watched her every move, and when she finally cut him off, he snapped. And here's the most disturbing part. The killer took a selfie with her body. Police recovered it from his cloud storage. He had planned this. Tributes and tears, emotional uprising. When her body was brought back to India, thousands attended her funeral. Her small town went silent that day. Shops closed. Schools shut. People stood in silence, not just to mourn, but to promise, never again. Her mother held her daughter's photo and whispered, "Come back just once. Call me with you one more time." Her father, who had spent every rupee on her dreams, collapsed during the last rites. Even strangers cried. And somewhere, in that crowd, was another girl, dreaming of studying abroad. But now, with fear in her heart. Global impact, the ripple effect. In the aftermath, thousands of students came forward with stories of being stalked, harassed, or threatened. Universities began to act. Hotlines were introduced. Emergency escort services were launched. Even Canadian immigration authorities issued new safety protocols for international students. But none of it can bring Vanshika back. She became the change. Through her death, she forced the world to wake up. And she gave courage to countless others who were suffering silently. But will it be enough? Or will we forget again? Until another Vanshika is lost? Final message, motivation, and tribute. To every girl watching this, your life matters. Your voice matters. And if something feels wrong, speak up. Don't wait. To every parent, talk to your child, no matter how far they are. Your words can save them. And to every university, every authority, every lawmaker, safety isn't optional. It's a right. Vanshika Saini wasn't just another name in a headline. She was hope. She was light. And she still lives on, in our hearts, in our fight, in our voices. Let her story be the last of its kind. Call to action, Mega Radio for you. If you believe her story deserves to be heard, help us keep her memory alive. Backhand index pointing right. Subscribe to Mega Radio for you for more powerful, real, emotional stories. Backhand index pointing right. Like this video. Every like helps her voice travel further. Backhand index pointing right. Comment your country and what you feel after hearing this. Let her family know the world hasn't forgotten. Share this video with your friends, your sisters, your daughters, because this story could save a life.